So let's take an example. So first kind of idiom we have here is sequence. So sequence idioms is to show time sequence. So what is the timeline of it? So any particular time, and like in the beginning or at the end of the time. So whenever you are talking with reference to time or a sequence, you can use few of these idioms. And whatever idioms we will be going to cover here, you can bring them into your daily practice to perform good in writing or in speaking section. So let's see what all sequence idioms we have. So the first one is at the outset. So at the outset is basically the beginning. In the beginning, how to use them is, the example for it is, at the outset, it is important to clarify the distinction between necessary and unnecessary expenditure. So while talking, if I want to clarify, so here we are using at, so the example is, at the outset, it is important to clarify the distinction between necessary and unnecessary expenditure. So in the beginning, it is important to clarify the distinction between the expenditures. Second one is, at the outset, we should be aware of the problems of using the online social media platform. In the beginning, we should be aware of the problems, right? So that's how it. And in the third example, if we will be using outset in between, it should be noted at the outset what is the cause of the problem with which we are concerned. Fourth example can be, whatever the purpose of the meeting, it should be stated at the outset and adhere to it. Okay. And the fifth last example is, it is important to consist in your, you should be consistent in your approach right from the outset. So in the end, how to use our outset is, in the, it is important to be consistent in your approach right from the outset. Now let's check the second one. It is first thing first. First thing first is to deal with things that are important over other things. Okay. So there can be an example like, the earth is starving. So first thing first, we must limit the use of natural resources, right? So initially, like, we will have to, it's most important that we must limit our natural resources. That's what the speaker wants to tell here. Now, second one can be, bullying is a problem children face in school, but first thing first, trained counselors should be hired to advise students. Okay, again, we are giving importance to the hired advisor in the school. Then the third example is, it will take a long time to improve conditions, but first thing first, let's see what actions can be taken at our level. Then you can also say, like, first thing first, let's take like talk about our role before we talk about government's responsibility. So that kind of things we can actually use first thing first. So global warming is a reality, but first thing first, let's discuss the measures can be used to mitigate the problem. Okay. High or top on agenda. So this means the most important thing to discuss or deal with. So top on agenda is, so say government has realized the need for placing education reform at the top of its agenda. Okay. Similar way, you can say, in these circumstances, it was no accident that planning and resourcing were high on the agenda for the internal debate. Or in each of the school, the library was clearly still high on the agenda for forward planning and review. So these are some examples for the sequence. So this is high on top or top of our agenda to get this work done. So that's how you can portray it. And then last but not the least, basically, like, it is, you have seen most of the speaker using last but not the least as, like, highlighting a last point with an important message. So important as that, in spite of being it is listed last, so it doesn't mean that it is not very much useful. So you can use it at, like, after the success of his first book, the author thanked his publishers and editors, but last but not the least, his family as well, right? So in the end, he thanked his family, but it was very important to him, right? So similar way, that is the best restaurant in the town because it has terrific food, a lovely ambience, and last but not the least, a great staff. Same way, last but not the least, the final participant at the event came on the showcase to showcase his skills, right? Then the new mall has like some great stores, good places to eat, and last but not the least, ample parking space, right? Then there's no time like the present. So it means that the importance of the current time, it is ongoing right now, is the best time. That's what it means. And you can give an examples like the master chef always told me that there is no time like the present to start working on your signature dish. Or you can say there is no time like the present to confess our love to our partner. Or there is no time like the present to start this venture because the government is fully supportive and sustainable energy and related reforms, right? Or it is true that there is no time like the present to do what your heart always desired. This is very straightforward. Okay, so you can use. Now let's talk more about the time related sequences. The early bird catches the worm. What does that mean is the people who arrive early are the one who gets the best deal. Like with the example, the admission in this college get filled in very early. If you are really want to enroll your son here, then you should remember that the early bird catches the worm. Or like I had told you that only the early bird catches the worm in this organization. Why did you wait for the last minute to send your application out? The seat is already taken now. So if you want to give importance to the someone who has benefited from getting early on the post, so you got the position because the early bird catches the worm. That way, I got to watch the movie in spite of there being a tremendous rush because the early bird catches the worm, like that. Then in the nick of time, at the last possible second, what it means is he arrived at the wedding in the nick of time. So the nick in the nick of time is basically the time at the end moment, you can say. So the ambulance arrived in the nick of the time. If they had been 5 minutes late, he would have died, like that. Or you cannot keep arriving in the nick of the time. Make sure to check your watch to tomorrow, or you will be early enough to help, like that. Or you can say you have to add the baking soda in nick of the time, otherwise it won't work. While preparing something, you can use the nick of the time. Then the 11th hour. You may have heard this many times. 11th hours is again in the nick of the time, but is nick of the time is for the last few seconds, or very like in a short duration of time. And 11th hours is very last moment. Uh, it is like at a very last minute before the event is actually done, or before it is too late, right? So just minutes before the deadline, he definitely submitted his assignment at the 11th hour, you can say. Or it's very irresponsible to leave chores until the 11th hour before doing them. Or Lisa loves the thrill and rush of making plans at the 11th hour. Or you can say like the past last passenger to board the aircraft got on at the 11th hour. So he was late, but he didn't miss the time. Or this one will be my favorite. So Rome was not built in one day, and you may have been using it since some while, if you know. So this is for giving significance to time. So every good thing needs time. So great things require more time than usual. Or in India, we say like Taj Mahal was not built in a day. So similar way, Rome was not built in a day. So the Oswalds, you can say an example like Oswalds have really worked hard in building their empire. Rome was not, after all, not built in one day, right? So giving a compliment to anyone, you can use this. Like just as Rome was not built in one day, you are not going to pass this exam by studying for just for one day, right? So you may have to give more efforts. Or my son has taken 10 years to get to this position. Rome was not built in one day. So by that you can show the importance of time. And or you can make sure that someone is articulating the importance of time. My children take their time with the creative project because they always aim at making them the best they can, right? And Rome was not built in one day. So you can add this phrase in the end or the in the start.